All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Parapalooza Fall 2021. We are moving right along with our day here. Hope everybody's having a great time. I appreciate everybody jumping on with us today. Please don't forget, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate that. And if you guys are new to us or if you're returning to us, please share with all your friends. Don't forget, if you're looking for any ghost hunting equipment, please reach out to Ghost Hunters Outlet. Vinny's going to be on tomorrow talking about paranormal investigating, kind of a little guide to it. And I'm with RCJ Productions, and go check out some of our other shows we got. Please subscribe. We offer a lot of different content for you guys. We have pretty much 3 paranormal shows that we do. So, if you guys can always find paranormal stuff through us. Um, again, appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. You guys have other things you could do on the weekends, but this is what more fun is it hanging out with a paranormal group, and especially this group we got coming up right now. We have Emma and Charlie with Transcendence Paranormal. They were actually on our first Parapalooza that we did, and it was a lot of fun. And I think they have a really exciting place today that they're at. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring them on. Hey guys.
Hello.
So I love the fact that you're sitting in a church right now. That is awesome.
It's one of our favorite locations. We've done a couple little investigations here. We do believe it to be haunted, and it's one of the oldest burial churches in North America. We're in the Pacific Northwest. Anything more about that? Or that's the fun facts I can think of.
It was built in the 1880s, 1882, I think specifically, and then they recently rebuilt it. You're looking at pretty much the extent of it. It's not a very big church. Turn you guys around for a second, and you can see that is the altar where they used to, not altar is a poor choice of words, but where caskets are usually held during services. Okay. I don't believe that they do any active burial services at this point in time here, but let me get that for a second.
But it's old and it has history. That's the good part.
It does.
There's a lot of history.
So, all right, I'm gonna turn you guys loose on it. Like I said, I'll be here in the background. If you guys need anything, if people pop up comments, I'll throw them up on the screen so you can read them. And,
thank you.
The floor is yours. Have fun.
Awesome. So, we're Transcendence Paranormal. You'll see in the background under, I got to use my other hand maybe, right about there is our REM pod. It is live and active. It is a EMF reader and a touch sensor. So if anything creates any pulsive waves or touches it or interacts with it, it's going to make loud noises. So we'll see if we can get anything while we're kind of talking. But Emmy's the star of the show today.
For those of you who don't know us, we run a podcast based in Oregon, and we cover pretty much any case that we can get our hands on across the Pacific Northwest. So we pretty much run from California, Oregon, Washington, hopefully branching into Idaho at some point in the COVID-free future. This is Charlie. It's my husband. We've been together for 10 years. He's kind of got sucked into the paranormal because I've been in it as long as I've been alive, and
oh, you didn't get a choice in that.
No. And my name's Emma. If I hadn't come across yet, I am a medium. We've been doing it, again, pretty much my entire life. I come from a family where women pretty much have that gift. It comes a little bit easier to the female side of my family. And we kind of want to talk to you guys about common questions that we get asked in the field. And one of our most popular ones is if hell exists, which is a really weird thing to cover.
It's a weird big question, but it is probably the number one question people ask besides, are you paranormal investigators? Is okay. Well, what about heaven? What about hell? Are those real? People want to know, is there this other side? And if you have any questions today, go ahead and put them up. The host said today we're going to put questions up. So if you have any questions for Emma or any questions in general, please put them up. We'll answer them. We figured we'd go through our most common questions. So,
but the top one is there not a hell? Charlie's Catholic, I'm pagan, so we both have differing ideologies about what that actually looks like. And anything that we say, we don't present as fact. It is purely just experience that we've been told through dowsing rods, through mediumship, whatever the case may be. So we don't pretend to be the know-all and everything, because it's not an exact science, and there's just so much that we will never know at this point in time. So grain of salt. But we've talked to several deceased people from several different denominations, and from atheism to Mormonism to Catholicism to anything in between. And we were told that reincarnation is not a thing, which is something that I personally have a hard time grappling with, because it's something that I've always believed in. And
the hard part on it, honestly, and this is the fascinating science. So ultimately, sorry, and we're not trying to tease you along. The answer we've gotten is no. Every spirit we have talked to has told us no, there is no hell. And as myself being Catholic, I have belief in that. So when people say, oh, you're just using the dowsing rods right here, you're just moving them to yourself and you're just answering the question yourself. Well, that's a deeply held belief that I have. So if I was answering it with my own answers, then why would I consistently get an answer that, goes against both of our belief systems? Yeah. So that's why it's the most fascinating one. But basically all of the spirits have said the same thing. There's no hell. Everyone goes to heaven, and basically they get bored and come back here to...
Well, I mean, that's not the only reason. It's very because if you listen to our podcast, we're Transcendence Paranormal across pretty much every streaming platform imaginable.
Yeah, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and we talk about our conversations with the other side. We also do some history. We talk about local Fairview. We did historic Wolf Creek Inn. So check us out on there, anywhere on as you said, almost any platform.
But you'll hear a lot of those stories and our encounters and stuff like that. And then another big question that we get asked, and we brought somebody here last night actually, and they were asking, do you mostly encounter negative spirits? And for me personally, no. We have had a couple instances which weren't the best, but by and large, no. Like the point that I was trying to make is, if you listen to our podcast, we preach ghosts are people too. And it's something that I think a lot of paranormal investigators, and not mediums so much, but paranormal investigators in general, I think kind of forget that sometimes and go into more of the science of it and forget the humanistic element of, this was a person at some point alive and that energy transfers somehow. But we largely know we get good and neutral.
Yeah, and this is where you see a lot of Hollywood influence, right? When you think of ghosts and spirits, you think of The Conjuring, you think of The Haunting in Connecticut, you think of
Amityville House,
because no one wants to be. I only think of one film, Casper the Friendly Ghost. Literally, that's the only friendly spirit I can think of that's portrayed in the media. So. No, we're not out fighting for our lives every time we do an investigation. We're not running into demons around every corner. There's not crosses flying across the room. For the most part, you'll hear us say this a lot, ghosts are people too. That's kind of our catchphrase. It's just like sitting down with someone, having a cup of coffee, oh, what did you do? What do you like to do? Do you like this or that? Is there something you want to talk about? It's just a very casual conversation. I think the only negative recent experience we had, we got a question. Have you ever been able to communicate with souls who have not completely crossed over?
Yes, actually.
Yes.
But that in itself is also a rare occurrence. And I know that it's a huge debate within the paranormal community about whether or not they need us to help them cross over. I personally did not believe that. I did not think that they needed help, but then we've had circumstances where religious people especially, who were stuck, and then Charlie prayed the rosary for them, which if you are familiar with Catholicism, you pray for souls in purgatory and it helps them get to heaven. So we've experienced that. And you want to share your experience with dowsing rods and how that works?
So not to plug our podcast too much, but if you listen to our podcast, we have the story on there on our Wolf Creek episode. That is the most prominent one I can think of. We were in the room that's supposedly the most haunted room in the Clark Gable room in historic Wolf Creek, and we had 3 ghost hunting groups in that room, and we all agreed that there was something on the bed. There was a female spirit on the bed, and these other ghost hunters wanted to jump right into let's, can they play with the toys? Can they do other things? And they didn't like that. They're like, I'm I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to play with you. You're supposed to help me. So help me. So we put an end to that, and they said that they wanted us to pray for them. So I always carry a rosary, Catholic, so I always carry my rosary. So I pulled it out, and they just said, yeah, please pray for me. So, I pulled it out, and we prayed for about 10 Hail Marys, and then their energy was just gone, just completely, they just left.
And it's a really bizarre thing, and we've only had it happen maybe like 4 or 5 times in the history of doing this, and we've been doing this professionally for a while. But Charlie, I'm hoping he can illustrate for you. So when we're typically communicating with something on the dowsing rods, they're pretty active in one way or another, but like when energy ceases to exist, I can feel that pretty instantaneously. I'm a clairsentient, so I feel things more than I see them, but it's...
1 second before you, I just want to answer the question that popped up so we don't lose it. What part of Oregon are we from? We're based out of Salem, Oregon, but we do all Pacific Northwest. So we go all the way up, to Seattle. We've dipped down into California or border of Oregon. So we're based out of Salem, Oregon. We're located outside of Mount Angel right now, but we go all over Oregon. So when there's no energy on the rods, you'll see that they pretty much just kind of sit here in the center. So this is what will happen, like if there's no energy and I ask a question like, hey, are you here? They just kind of sit here. But then when a spirit's interacting with them, I'm going to move them, so you'll see me move them. And I do left for no, and I do right for yes. So I'm going to put them right here in the center, and we know there's one spirit with us who interacts with us a lot. So
his name is Kenneth. He's an 8-year-old boy we found in Lincoln City who's basically been living with us for about 1.5 years now. He very much likes attention, so he is pretty much always on these things, ready to talk when...
Yeah. So we're going to try it now. So you see there's kind of floating in the middle. So now I'm going to ask, hey, Kenneth, are you here right now? And you'll see they move strongly to the right. That's a yes. A little clear. And you'll see they move right back to the center. And then I'll ask another thing like, Kenneth, can you point to Emmy right now? And you'll see they move over there. And this is how we, in combination with Emma's mediumship, will ask yes or no questions in between what she kind of feels and what they say on the rods. That's how we get our questions answered.
And so along the lines of talking about mediumship questions that we get asked a lot. So if you are all familiar with dowsing rods, you'll see a lot of people say that these don't get accurate data because they're very susceptible to human hand movement. Mm-hmm. That is true.
Yep.
However, we have been able to discern information that would not have been otherwise possible without these. And I'll let you explain the Maddie situation.
Yeah, so that's plugging our podcast again, Transcendence Paranormal, the episode Cannon Beach. We were out investigating
the legend of the Bandage Man.
The Bandage Man in Cannon Beach. Supposedly he was like a lumberjack who fell on the saw and it just completely tore him up. Did you let the spirit show you what a yes or no would be on your dowsing rods?
Yes.
Yes and no. That is how I was originally taught, and that's how the spirits interacted. And every time we talk to the spirits, I always set the same ground rules. So I'll say, okay, left for no, right for yes. That way it's always clear, it's always explained. That way there's no misinformation, nothing like that.
It's important to set that baseline.
If you're talking about science, it's always important that you set parameters, right? So that's always the parameter. Left is no, right is yes. And we always explain that before we begin interacting so that we always get solid data. So the Bandage Man. So supposedly he fell on a saw, got torn up, got covered in bandages, and haunts Highway 101 on Cannon Beach. So we were out looking for him, and
I'm trying to find evidence to talk to locals.
Yeah. And Emmy got a hit while we were on the highway. Like, there's someone right here. Like, well, shoot. So we pulled over, and we had just stopped at the Tillamook Cheese Factory, and they really wanted some of our cheese curds. So we made an offering of a couple cheese curds so they could enjoy the cheese curds. And, first we wanted to know their name. And she had a name pop into her head, but usually what we'll do is we'll just grab the rods and we'll literally go through the alphabet like, okay, does your name start with A? No. Does your name start with B? No.
And so
C?
it's
No.
one of those ways of trying to keep the dilution out of the experiment, because so while I'll have a name pop in my head, he won't know that. He won't be aware of that. So there's no, what's the right word for that?
There's no contamination.
Yeah.
She doesn't tell me, I think it starts with an M, and then I say, okay, does it start with an M? And then point to yes, like, we agree. She knows it, and then she waits for me to get there. And then if I get a hit on, say yes, we'll say, okay, it starts with an M. She's like, okay, I have the name Maddie in my head. Then we know like how, it's one of those ways that we help to prove like there's some validity to it. How did we both get the letter M in our heads without communicating to each other? And really, she gave us a whole bunch of information. Her favorite song is from Shrek, the Smash Mouth, the Hey Now You're an All-Star. And that played on our radio constantly on the trip home. But we got enough information. We got her first, her last name, her approximate date of birth, and the location that she died on, and the date of death.
And we were able to basically back search that through obituaries. So we're not going to give any more information outside of that because her family is still living.
And we don't want people to harass her family, right? So if we told you all the information, not saying you guys would, but there are people out there like, oh, they're talking about this ghost. I'm going to contact their family, see if this is real, and ask them about their dead daughter. And that's just, that's not right.
That's the other side of paranormal investigation that I think a lot of people don't take into account. So a lot of people go in it for the science side of it, which is totally fine, totally awesome. We need more of that. But a lot of paranormal investigative work, especially with mediumship, is involved in working with the people who are still alive and present and dealing with the grief of their deceased loved one. And so we want to pay as much homage and respect to those people because that is a huge loss in most cases for a lot of people. And going in and be like, hey guys, I talked to your dead, relative. It's really not uncouth.
Yeah, and there's very few times we've ever contacted a family, if ever. Like, we talk about it and we think about it, but more times than not, it's going to hurt the grief process. It's going to hurt the family more. And unfortunately, our whole field, is tainted with people out for money, people out for fame. I'm gonna call TikTokers out on this. How many TikToks do you see where people talk to celebrities who recently passed away for clout or for views?
You'll see a lot with the Gabby Petito case that's currently hitting national headlines. There are a lot of mediums that are talking how they've spoken to Gabby Petito while gaining very much internet celebrity fame. Most of the mediums, psychics, what have you, on TikTok are not real, and I get a lot of backlash for that, but.
Yeah, well, in fact, we had an experience with that. There was a guy who posted a very convincing video about him seeing a child's wet feet in a bathroom, and he said that 6 or 7 mediums contacted him saying like, oh, I talked to that spirit, don't worry. And then he's like, that video was fake, I made that up. So these people were legit contacting him, like, hey, I'm a legit medium and I'm talking to this person. And then he told them that's not real. And then what do you do at that point? I mean, you basically just called them out for being fakes and frauds, and there's a lot of those in the field.
Sorry, it's really dusty in here, guys. I don't have COVID.
I'm not wearing a mask because there's no other people around. I'm not like, oh.
Pretty sure it's the vibration.
That might have been vibration, so I got to go reset that. Oh, there we go. So that's the other thing you'll see us do a lot. We believe in debunking things. So you saw that go off, and we thought it's because we moved in vibrations. Just like any other science, if you don't try and explain, then it's pointless, right? We need to explain the explainable and talk about the unexplainable.
Any other questions?
We haven't got any other questions yet, so I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
One of the most common questions you get asked is, how do I grow as a medium? I think I'm sensitive. How do I flex the medium muscle?
So I'm not a teacher. I'm going to preface with that. I don't have a good answer for that. I was lucky, fortunate, gifted, whatever you want to call it, in the case that I've been able to see things since I was young. And that's just kind of been it. I don't know. I think intuition is a huge part of it. I think listening to the signals that your body is giving you and learning to be still and not talk and listen to others and just be meditation. I hear a lot from other psychics and mediums that's a huge thing for them. It really depends on the religion. It depends on the culture, and other people will tell you, but I really do not have a good answer for that. I'm sorry.
No, the most common answer I hear to that is it's a muscle. Think of it like a muscle. You've got to use it grow it. So some people are like, well, I want to grow and be a medium. Well, then you've got to do it. You've got to go out there. You got to do the practice. You got to do the work. A lot of people.
Tarot is a good.
Got a deck right here. If you're talking about growing your intuition, a lot of people enjoy tarot as a tool for intuition, and I found that it really helps with my intuition. In fact, we did a live investigation. Someone invited us into their home to speak with a couple of the spirits there, and using the tarot cards, we were able to actually find out about one of the spirits pretty in depth. That then matched up with what you were being told. So you got to use the muscle. You got to get out there and do it. So, even just try listening to yourself, try doing it. The more you try, the more practice you're going to have, the stronger you're going to get at it. But I also don't think it's something you can't just go out and do it, right? We all have our individual talents, and some people unfortunately just don't have, quote, the gift. I'm not a medium. I can't see anything. I very rarely will get a vague feeling of things.
But the dowsing rods work for me, but they work fantastic for him. They simply do not move which I don't know why, but they don't. And he's really...
So find your talent too. Do you use meditation to help with your intuition?
Yes, personally I do. I'm pagan, but I'm transitioning into Catholicism now. So on a personal basis, I use prayer. Prior to converting over to Catholicism, I would use meditation, I would use breathing techniques, I would work with candle magic, asking for guidance from the universe to lead me into whoever I needed to help, basically. And really, the context hasn't changed in that regard, coming from that to prayer. You're still asking for the same things, just from a different, higher power.
As a medium, what do you first look for in a person requesting a reading? Are you asking for a tarot reading? Because
I don't do tarot.
Emily doesn't do the tarot. I actually do the tarot.
I do rune readings, but Charlie's our tarot guy.
And if you're talking tarot reading, I actually don't ask any questions, because the more questions I ask, the more chance I have of being influenced by the person. And you'll see people have talked about this, something called cold reading, where you read someone's body language, you read their voice inflection, things like that, to try and give you an answer that you want. So the only thing I'll ask is, what do you want out of the reading? Are you looking for, job? Are you looking for love? Are you looking for, what's the general question of the reading? And that's the only question I'll ask. I don't ask for any other information, because I find that it taints the intuition, because now you've got a bias towards, they just told me that their spouse died and they want a love reading. They want to hear about their deceased spouse, or they want to hear. So I try to avoid that altogether. I think it's the same for runes, but runes are a little different.
Yes, but if you're talking in context of mediumship and if I ask questions when someone's asking about a deceased loved one, getting both sides of the coin here. I also don't ask for any information at all, because I don't want it to influence anything that I'm going to be reading into. So I pretty much also do cold readings. You see that, so more objective opinion from the outside. But
do you use stones and crystals such as black obsidian for protection? So we preach a lot on protection, that protection only works if you believe in it. You can't just say to someone who has no faith in something like, if you pray, then you'll have protection, because if you don't have belief in that prayer, then it's worthless. As a Catholic, I only use prayer for protection now. I ask for intercession from St. Michael. I do prayers. I don't use I don't use crystals. I don't use any other form of protection. Prayer is it for me.
But that like Charlie said, that it's dependent on the religion and the culture. So whatever is familiar to you. I was Norse neo-pagan, so I had a lot of spell bags, charm bags, things like that, warding the home, all kinds of different variations in that. But like I said, I'm moving into Catholicism, so the rosary has been a huge thing for me, in prayer also. But you have to believe, like Charlie said, you have to believe in it. You can't just be like, someone told me rose quartz will do the thing, but if you don't have any foundational faith or understanding in it, it's really not going to do much to you. I personally, coming from the Wiccan pagan belief system, do not believe crystals do anything. I know, again, that's going to put me into pot of hot water that people are really not going to like that answer, but I believe that we give physical objects meaning when they don't necessarily have it. But
well, crystals in particular has become a hot button issue. Again, I'm gonna hate on TikTok because TikTok is this horrible source of misinformation and people making up their own fiction because they can. Someone was doing a TikTok on ADHD bracelets. They were crystals that you wore around your wrist that was supposed to reduce or cure your ADHD, and they were selling those for like $100.
I have ADHD that don't do nothing. It doesn't do anything.
It again seems predatory to prey on people's fears or the idea of I can cure you, all it takes is money. And we did our own series on this, in fact, about, it's a red flag if someone says, oh, you have, bad vibrations in your room and I can fix that with this $100 bag of whatever. Or,
it's about intent, not about the object.
Right. There is value to buying those objects, but the intent behind it, as you said, can be very malicious.
I mean, it can go in both directions too, though.
It can. There are some well-meaning people, but that's the danger of TikTok, is that you could be very well-meaning and go in there and learn completely wrong things, and you don't know any better. It's like any offering of help. You have to accept it in order to benefit from it. Yeah, exactly. I would agree with that. So what other questions do we regularly get asked?
I had one in and then I lost it. So give me just a moment. Demons.
Oh, demons.
So let's talk about demons. I personally do not believe in demons. Charlie is Catholic, so that kind of comes with the territory. I have experienced things that I could label as demonic, but I don't know. And Charlie here was studying to be a demonologist, so let's your experience.
Before we get into that, actually, though, I have an interesting question in your mind. Well, not question, but I have a quiz for you guys. So we need the audience to participate in this one because this is really cool and something that we're actively investigating because we've gotten so much around it.
So
she has once saw a figure that I guess you described as like a gargoyle, like a.
Okay, so this is 5 or 6 years ago now. So I pretty commonly have night terrors.
Yeah.
As Charlie can attest to, and I feel bad for him, but sorry, I think I just moved too hard. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was a thing that if you've seen Lord of the Rings, it looked pretty much like Gollum, Smeagol type stuff. So it's, hi guys.
Hello.
I was wondering how I could locate where you're.
We are the wrong
Sorry, we don't.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so like Gollum, like this gray creature perched up on a wall, like kind of in the corner.
Yeah, and you can attribute that to night terrors, to lucid dreaming, anything in that regard. So it was jarring, but I didn't really think too much of it. And I was working at the Oregon State Hospital, and one of my coworkers, all on her own, brought up a similar experience to me. And then we were on a ghost tour in Dallas, and someone had photographic evidence of something very similar to what I experienced.
Yeah, someone got a picture of it, and the medium who was with us, a different medium, said that they saw it. So we started asking people if they've seen this demon, cryptid, whatever you would call it.
Fever dream.
And a surprisingly high amount of people have seen this grayish, Gollum-like gargoyle creature in the corner. So we just wanted to pose it to you guys watching. Have any of you seen anything like that? We didn't move that. Oh, the touch sensor's going off. You can't see it well, but the green light is going off, and so it has a light on each side. And when one of the lights on the side lights up, that means it's being touched from that side. So the green lights means it was being touched from the back right by something that's within, it senses about 3 inches. Do you get impressions when you enter locations?
Absolutely. So Fairview Training Center, for a lot of you who aren't local to the Pacific Northwest, was
mental health institution?
Yes. And has a pretty dark history behind it. So they're building luxury apartments on that property now, and you can, I don't know, like for us, when we just drive over that threshold onto that acreage, you can definitely feel the difference. But it's not always negative though, right? Mm-hmm. So like Enchanted Forest is supposedly haunted. I haven't experienced that, but I don't feel anything negative there. It's pretty happy. It's pretty.
And typically things that you would describe as sanctified grounds, like churches and things like that, typically have a better feeling to it. But that's one of those questions: is that the sanctified ground, or is that just, you know, we've been so conditioned to feel that relief there that we feel that because we've been conditioned to? But there definitely is impressions, and I hate to use the word, but it fits so well. There's vibes in the area, right?
It's a very millennial term for it.
So
yes.
Back onto the original topic of demons. So yes, I studied to be a demonologist because I was really intrigued by it. And then I was really disappointed by it. I got a deck of demons to, you know, learn a demon a day. I got the Dictionary of Demons, Dictionary Infernals.
Michelle Belanger's like huge.
And what I found was that most of the demons is just made up. If you go through like and look at like the index and compendiums of those books that tell you where the information is, it'll say this demon was first mentioned in 1984 by this author in this book. That doesn't mean that demon exists. That doesn't mean anything. It just means that someone made it up. Kind of like there's a lot of people who think the Necronomicon exists, and that's literally just something made up by H.P. Lovecraft, right? If you're talking about the fleeting dark creature that scampers around the room, yes. That's scary, right? A lot of people have seen that. And it's crazy how many people have seen this thing. We don't have a name for it. The other medium said it was like an elemental. It wasn't a demon. It was like a soulless being. But
I disagree with that personally. Yeah. But, you know, there's no right or wrong answer for it.
So then we look to, you know, one of the, quote, original sources of demons. You know, you look to the Bible, and
it's me. Every time I do this, it does.
You have like 4 named demons in the Bible, and that's it. So where do people come up with these thousands and thousands of other demons and their titles and what they are? Well, a lot of them came from other folklore. Like half the demons in the deck that I got were just like folklore from Danish countries, Scandinavian countries, and was just their folklore reskinned as a demon. I think 2 of the demons were Japanese oni, which, you know, oni is a word for demon for Japan, but it's a completely different concept. So demonology was very disappointing. It wasn't as exciting. I know that recently another movie with Ed and Lorraine Warren came out. You know, he was, you know, the famous demonologist. But yeah, the devil made me do it. Demonology was overall a disappointing thing to study because most of it was just people making things up to have fun and to sound cool, and there wasn't actual basis for it.
As folklore, it's totally fun though. But like if you're trying to teach it as an actual science, I hate to be that disappointing person in that.
I'm also surprised how many people, if you ask about, you know, what do I do when I see a demon, they say, according to the Bible, Jesus Christ gave us the ability to command demons. So all you have to say, and then they copy and paste this internet meme of how to cast out a demon. And if
it's from the Ritual Romanum, because they just take a chunk of it and then they just go without any faith or anything.
And if it was that simple, then why, you know, the Catholic Church still does exorcisms. Exorcisms is a very hush-hush thing that still exists. And if anyone was able to do it, and all they had to do was read, you know, 1 paragraph and that was it, then, you know, all the exorcists would be out of work. So it doesn't work to just copy and paste one little saying and banish demons. That's not how it works. That's just another fiction of misinformation that floats around the internet.
If you'd like to hear from an actual demonologist, one of our first episodes is an interview with a demonologist out in Idaho. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check it out.
Isn't demon just an overused term for anything negative?
Yeah,
yes, that is absolutely true. And there's so many times where anyone will just say, oh, there's a demon in my room. Okay, describe it. Well, it feels bad in the room. Well, that's not a demon. We had a Jean. We were just talking to a spirit, Jean. She gave off bad vibes, right? She had these bad feelings, but she was just an upset spirit. It it wasn't a demon. Demon is definitely way overused, and that, again, that's the fault of Hollywood, that's the fault of TikTok, that's the fault of all the media, and it's the fault of Ghost Adventures. We went to Wolf Creek Inn, again, wonderful place to go to, and they
Definitely haunted, by
literally
the way.
they explored it because there was a portal to hell in the kitchen.
There wasn't.
And that's like, oh, there's demons infesting the kitchen. And it wasn't. There was one grumpy old guy, and there was a lady who wanted help. Like, it's so overused. But so we talk about this a lot. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much. There is 3 fields of paranormal investigation. There's paranormal investigators who are in it solely for the science. There's paranormal investigators who want to answer questions. And then there's the largest group, which is there's paranormal people for entertainment.
And there's nothing wrong with any of those groups by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The problem that we encounter is when you're taking the entertainment group and they're trying to push into the science group.
Yeah, and that's if Ghost Adventures, I like to pick on them because we don't like their show.
Well, for entertainment value, it's hilarious.
It's entertaining.
But as far as science, literally nothing they do on there is legit. So
Right, and when we put out our equipment, like our REM pod, it can take hours to get like one instance where, like, let's talk about that and see, can we debunk why it went off. That's not interesting to watch on TV. No one wants to watch an hour of some guy going through, spirit box photography or audio, and like, oh, let's get rid of all the words, let's get rid of, all the fuzz. It's just not interesting.
And for those of you who haven't been on like paranormal investigations with a group, it's pretty boring.
Very boring.
Most of the time. It takes, like Charlie said, it takes forever. It can take days, weeks, months, years to get anything because. And one of the top things I tell people is you don't need to go ghost hunting in the dark. That's not a thing. There are instances where you have people kind of trapped in this loop where it might be circumstantial to a certain time of day, but by and large,
residual haunting.
Yeah. So if you want to go do paranormal investigation, you don't need to wait for it to be dark. If you're wanting it for entertainment value, sure, do the thing. If you want to be scared, sure, do it. But if you're just trying to get a handle on things and wanting to learn and interact with things, you can do that at any point, day or night.
That reminds me of a funny story. When we were out investigating Wolf Creek Inn, we went with a group to a graveyard, and it just so happened to be night. We ran out of time to do things, and we wanted to keep doing it, so we went late into the evening. You don't have to, but we did. And when we walked into the graveyard, Emmy said that she didn't like it there. She had a bad feeling, and like, oh, is it because there's demons here? And she's like, no, it's because it's dark. We're in a graveyard at midnight.
In an unfamiliar place with strangers we just met 2 hours ago. It has nothing to do with demons, just anxiety.
But that's the bias, right? They wanted the exciting answer. They wanted, like, oh, she's going to talk about demons. It's like, no, it's in the dark with strangers. We're a little bit on edge. And it is boring, but that's the exciting part to us, right?
And don't ever feel like we're going to shame you for asking questions. Because, everyone comes into a different level of education in paranormal. And what may seem like a silly question to you, it could be a very deep, thoughtful thing that we've had a lot of experience with and have a better answer for you. But so don't ever feel like we're trying to shame you to not asking questions, because that's not the case at all.
No, we enjoyed the questions. Thank you so much for being interactive and talking with us during this. It's something we're passionate about. I hope you can see the passion in it. And it's so fun to get to talk about our experiences and our stories. And we've met so many interesting characters. Do you feel like it's dangerous to do an investigation in your own home?
Oh, not at all. However, if you do not want to find things there, and let me try to figure out how to phrase this. Let me put it this way. So our house is haunted, and I know that, and I'm okay with interacting with deceased people on a certain level. What I do not want is catching things on camera in the middle of the night while I'm sleeping, and nor do I want to hear audio clips of things talking to me while I'm sleeping. That scares the absolute shit out of me, regardless of how comfortable I am with the dead or not. So it depends on how much you want to expose yourself to. Some people like to live in that ignorance. I'm one of them.
I don't get to live in that because of her night terrors. And this is another thing you'll hear us say a lot, the real things are much scarier than the paranormal things. If I'm out in a graveyard at night for whatever reason, I would much rather encounter a spirit than I would a human being, because who knows what that human being is going to be, if they're going to be dangerous, are they going to be friendly, what are they going to do? You can't predict what people are going to do. That's way scarier. But some nights she'll wake me up because she'll just like freak out with it. She's like, they're in the corner, and it's like, who's in the corner? Or she's like, they're coming in the house. Like, who's coming in the house? And that's much scarier than anything paranormal I've ever experienced. But this is, again, I will blame TikTok for this. Every baby witch you hear people call them will tell you, if you try and do any spell work without protection, then you're going to curse yourself, you're going to hex yourself, you'll accidentally kill yourself. And there's new ghost hunters out there who'll tell you, if you don't protect yourself before you leave, then you're going to open up a portal, demons will come back and haunt you. We've never had any experience like that.
Sorry.
That one was us 100%. We accidentally moved this. So
Something was this one medium.
the living is more scary than dead. Yes, it is. That is 100% our experience.
I can't think of a single time where we've encountered the paranormal where we felt compelled to leave for fear of safety. We've always.
I have one.
Which one?
The Masonic Cemetery in Lafayette.
That's because you were by yourself. there was nothing bad there. It was just when you're by yourself, sometimes you're more susceptible to external stimuli. But we've had several close calls with people.
Yeah.
But never anything paranormal. And we have an episode coming up with the next 2 weeks about our experience at East Eddie's UFO Ranch. That was one of those experiences, which was a little unnerving. And then we ended up leaving in the middle of the night for fear of safety. But that's a whole other story.
We have had stuff follow us home. Like Kenneth is one who, he just told us, I'm following you home, whether you like it or not. But I mean, if you want to consider it a haunting, what does he do? He begs for Skittles and watches Guy Fieri. Like,
he doesn't do anything.
Is that scary? No, I like it. I love watching Guy's grocery games with him. We sit down and eat good food and watch TV together. So there's nothing scary about that. So things have followed us home, but it was never anything that I wanted to, quote, be protected from. It was, Kenneth is a great dude. He follows all this stuff. Like, we were just talking with him on the dowsing rod. We did a TikTok live, and he's a ham, so he loves to get up in front of the camera and, perform on the dowsing rods and touch the stuff back there. And he loves to do all that.
And you'll see people say that they have activity every single day. That's not a thing. It's really not. We get activity, but like, it's so far in between.
I think last night was the first time we've had any like quantifiable activity, probably in years.
Months.
So the people who somehow manage to always get paranormal activity on their TikTok that only shoots for 1 minute.
And on command, paranormal activity does not happen on command.
That's someone taking advantage of you.
Like 100% of the time, if you're seeing people that are able to get activity on command and they just magically have their phone out capturing like all of these bizarre things, they're faking it.
Yep.
I have never been able to capture any of the paranormal activity we've had on camera because I'm not out with my cell phone at all of the time. Like, I'm just not.
Well, let's talk about cameras. So I got into photography. I'm a photographer too. I got into photography because I wanted to catch a ghost on camera. So I have a DSLR camera. We both carry cell phone cameras. I have a drone camera. I have a Polaroid camera and a thermal camera and a full spectrum camera. So that's seven cameras that we carry to every single investigation. I have taken hundreds of gigs of photos. We're talking I'd say tens of thousands. I don't think I've hit 100,000 photos yet, but tens of thousands of photos on 7 different cameras, and I've caught 0 ghosts on camera.
That doesn't mean it's not possible, though. We're not saying it's not possible, we just haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah, so when people manage to get 20 different photos of ghosts in one night, I don't buy it, because I've trained to be a photographer. I've learned how to use cameras. I've learned about lighting tricks and all those sort of things. And if you go to the ghost subreddit, they do a lot of like orb videos. I gotta tell you, I'm a big skeptic of orbs, and almost everyone will tell you that they've debunked them as bugs or dust, floating in the wind. I've yet to see a photograph of a ghost that's made me say that is 100% concrete evidence.
And all the older ones you see are usually, I forgot the term for it.
Spirit photography, basically. Double exposures. We did a whole podcast podcast episode, again, plugging the podcast, Transcendence Paranormal. Check us out. We did a spirit photography episode because I wanted to study it. And a lot of those old spirit photographies was just people abusing the technology because they found an easy way to make money off of potentially a global segment of the population. And unfortunately, that still continues to this day. And like these dowsing rods, these are more expensive ones. I think I paid over $100 for these, but most dowsing rods you can either make yourself, pay 10 or 20 bucks for. You don't need expensive equipment. We've got a whole case of gear here that's well over $1,000. You don't need it. You can go ghost hunting.
We did the testing for you and hurt our own wallets for your benefit. 99% of it you don't need.
You can go out with your cell phone and record on your cell phone and have just as good of a ghost hunt as you can with all the equipment. You don't need to buy it. Now, you can, and there's definitely a lot of fun you can have with it, but don't let someone tell you you can't be a ghost hunter without all the fancy equipment. I think we use our cell phones probably the most because it's just handy to always have.
Quite honestly, I mean, we weren't sold on the dowsing rod till the REM pod until we were at Wolf Creek.
We saw that
I was
in
very
action.
skeptical of that. But by and large, we use the dowsing rods, me, phone, and that's it.
Yeah, and occasionally tarot cards. Those can be fun.
Yeah.
But I think we got about 10 more minutes. Is that? Are we watching the time? Don't want to run over our time. Got 15 minutes left.
So why don't you give like your favorite experience and I'll give mine.
Favorite experience?
Give them something less doom and gloom.
Less doom and gloom. Well, I'll tell you the full story of Kenneth, just because Kenneth is probably my favorite experience I've had. He's such a cool little dude. So we met him out in Lincoln City. Lincoln City is one of our favorite places. We were investigating the rumors of a haunted ghost ship that had been sighted out in Lincoln City, and we decided to stop in at one of the graveyards, and he just instantly popped up and wanted to talk with us. Wanted to talk. This happens to Emmy a lot, where she'll just get like something in your head, and like in this case, it was like Skittles. I want Skittles. I want candy. Talk to me. Can I have candy? And it's nonstop candy. So we talked to him because he wanted to talk. And we thought that was the end of it. And we went back to the hotel room, and the TV remote wouldn't work. And I was like, it's whatever. It's a hotel. The remote doesn't work.
Yeah,
So it was stuck on Guy Fieri's grocery games. They were doing a 24-hour special on Guy Fieri's grocery games. And so I was like, I'll just go use the physical buttons on the TV. It was an old enough TV that you could physically like press the buttons to change the channel. None of those buttons worked. It would not turn off. It would not change the channel. It had to be on Guy Fieri's grocery games.
You just thought it was broken, though?
Yeah, I chalked it up to a broken TV. Then we went back to that graveyard the next day because we had some other business to take care of there. And Kenneth wanted to talk again. And on kind of a whim, we asked, hey, was that you? And he's like, yeah, I love cooking shows. I loved Guy Fieri. I wanted to watch it. And we're like, okay. And then we're like, okay, we're leaving now. And he says, well, I'm coming with you.
And I was like, no, you're not. And he's like, yes, I am. And I'm like, no, but.
And then on the car ride home, we're like, okay, well, what kind of music do you listen to? So we put on some of his favorite songs, and they were like, 1920s bops, like.
Mine are 1910.
Old school music that I'm not a fan of. So I was trying to just go through the songs, like skipping song after song.
And it wouldn't. It was the weirdest thing, because we're on Spotify, right? So like.
There was one song that he wanted to listen to, and it would not let me change the song.
It would just kick back to it anytime we tried.
Yep, it would skip forward, and it would go back to that song. And then once we listened to it all the way through, then we could skip again. But he wanted to listen to that one song really badly, so we had to let him. And we like I said, we've done lives with him. He loves to hang out with us. He loves to talk with us. He comes with us on investigations. He helps us with talking to the other side. I mean, Kenneth's just a favorite. Your turn. Your favorite.
I have a lot of favorite experiences, but I'll talk about the one that led me into doing this professionally. So, like I said, I've been able to talk and see things since I was a kid. But it was one of those muscles that I've always had. So I was like, okay, I can do the thing. Nothing really special about that. And I took a lot of things for granted, and then my grandfather ended up going on hospice in 2017, late 2017, and ended up passing away late 2018. And that brought a lot of grief anxiety. that brought a lot of fear of death, that brought a lot of other things. And despite being able to talk with things on the other side, I don't know. I don't know if other mediums go through this. I go through a lot of self-doubt in my ability a lot of the time. And so the night after my grandfather passed, or it was the night my grandfather passed, he had one page left in the book that he was reading earlier that day when I was sitting with him. And I was like, okay, Papa, we're gonna read the last page of your book because you didn't get to finish it, and that kind of sucks because you literally just had one page left. So everybody else was in the other part of the house, and I was sitting in the bedroom where he passed away, and I was sitting on the floor reading that to him. And their house is haunted too, so they've always had activity, and you get pretty used to it. But their bed, as I was sitting there on the floor right next to the bed, the mattress dipped, like very noticeably dipped, right? Like someone was sitting down on the bed, and like I very much felt it was him, but I've never experienced anything like that before. And my grandfather was a very loving person, and our family is very like physical touch. Always, this is how I show my love language. And one of his favorite things to do was come up behind me and grab the tail of my jacket or my shirt and just tug it. And I would be in the kitchen, and I would just feel something lightly tug on my shirt, like he'd be at work, and it'd just be me by myself. And yeah, it's one of my favorite ones.
And that was interesting. We talked about the grief process, but like being able to speak with him as he moved to the other side and like answer some of our questions. It was hard. I wouldn't say it was helpful. I wouldn't recommend it for just anyone. You got to go through the grief process yourself, but it changed the grief process from this person's gone and I can never see them again to, I just got to talk to them through some sticks instead.
I can talk to my grandfather pretty much whenever I want now. And the first time was really difficult emotionally. Yeah. And sorry, I heard someone talking. We got to wrap up here soon, but it was just a phenomenal experience. Yeah. And if you're in that point and want to talk to a legitimate medium and are able to have that experience, I would absolutely recommend it for closure.
And one last plug, we're Transcendence Paranormal. You can check out our podcast, but we also, our email is transcendenceparanormal@gmail.com. If you want to talk anything more about what we've talked about here, email us. If you want to talk to a medium, email us. If you want a tarot card reading, email us. We love interacting with us. So.
And if you can't find our email for whatever reason, we are also on our website, lonelyghostcottage.com. Mm-hmm. All one word. We're on Instagram. We're also on TikTok under Transcendence Paranormal. So if you would like to see more of us rather than just the auditory thing on the podcast, we interact and do lots of fun stuff there too. And
so please reach out. We love talking with the community. We love answering questions. I love doing readings for people. We love talking about it. So it's been great talking to you guys. It's been great having the interaction. And I hope some of you guys reach out to us through the email or other things so that we can continue the conversation.
There's a huge ass on the floor. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely go check them out, guys. I do have a question, kind of to wrap things up. You mentioned about your grandfather and everything. Do you think people that maybe have the gift or maybe aren't aware of it, do you think sometimes traumatic events like that bring it out or make people aware? Because you hear that all the time.
That's what happened in my case. And I was able to do things, like I said, but that really was the fuel for the fire and really wanting to find answers and definite proof of life after death, because I have massive death anxiety regardless of what I can do. So I would definitely say yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, great job, guys. Great location. You guys picked a really cool location today, and your information was great. We had a lot of good interaction with the audience. I think everybody really enjoyed it. So
thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for having us.
Have a great
no problem.
Parapalooza.
Yeah, thanks. We appreciate it, and we'll definitely hit you up for the next one.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. So go check them out, everybody. Go subscribe, check out their podcast. Like I said, we did have them on the first Parapalooza that we had, and it was a lot of fun. Always cool to have live locations on there. It always adds a little bit to it. And, I agree with their the idea that you can, pretty much investigate anytime. It doesn't have to be at night. I think, maybe at night for some people is more of a psychological thing than not. But I know for me, I like to do it at night, but that doesn't mean anything because I'm still new at paranormal investigating. So everybody knows that. Anyway, we got 2 more spots coming up for you guys. Great way to end this Saturday. We got Tony and Cherie coming up next. Consciousness Beyond Death. And then we got George and Kara Shopland, who are going to be live at the Nevada State Prison. So that'll be coming up. Please, if you guys haven't done so already, go to our other shows and please subscribe. We're always looking for subscriptions. And go check out Transcendence Paranormal. Those guys are really good. You'll enjoy their podcast. And reach out to them if you have any questions. We're going to be back on in a few minutes with Tony and Cherie. So until then, we'll see you guys.